Presentation. I'm Rick Roman.
And my name is Michael Crowley.
Today we are talking about the Emergency Action Plan. I'll remind you again, as always, that you can type in any of your questions that you may have as we go along at the top right of your screen into the chat box, and we will get to all of the questions at the end of the presentation, but you don't need to wait till then to submit your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. As an overview, we will be going over what is an emergency action plan, or an EAP as it's commonly referred to, why every business must have one, the key elements of an effective EAP, what EAP training should consist of, when and how often that you should train and update the EAP.
It's going to be good, Rick.
All right. Okay, first here, the EAP is an organized procedure for employees and employers to follow in response to a workplace or emergency or disaster.
In a nutshell, this is a program that that'll tell you what you need to do when all the crap hits the fan. When things go awry, this is what we're going to do.
This is going to ensure that all of your employees are evacuated in a safe and orderly manner, and that we can avoid loss of life and property. So Cal OSHA requires that every company have and implement a written emergency action plan. So some of the things that might occur or that you would need to be prepared for are natural disasters, as you can see here, anywhere from floods to earthquakes. You have accidents of various sorts. You might have an explosion or fires or chemical spill, and also criminal activity. You might have, could be a bomb threat or robbery, or just some sort of a disturbance in the workplace that might result in physical harm or trauma.
When you're looking at this list of emergencies that Rick put together, I think for some of you, you're looking at it going, well, one is probably more pertinent than another. For example, it's going to be difficult for us to have a blizzard here in the California, unless you're up in Tahoe or up in the mountains. But you need to focus on probably the earthquakes, or the floods, depending on where you're at. It could be even dust storms if you're in the Central Valley to a certain extent. But the reality is, it's probably going to, the main earth is going to be earthquakes. And so training your people and focusing on that is really going to be what you want to focus on. And for some, depending on what you do, it could be it could be the explosions too. So as you're looking at this list, just kind of talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes and just say, what are we going to try? What are we going to try to plan for? Obviously, riots happen. That's going to be something that's a rarity, but try to pick a couple and say, this is what our plan is going to be shooting for.
All right. So there's several key elements to have an effective emergency action plan.
Yep.
The first part is your written plan.
Yep. You got to have the written plan in place, and obviously you're a client of EEAP, hopefully, and the logic here is we've written this in place, and so we're going to go over the components of what's in it already, and to make sure you understand what it is.
And in addition to the parts that you have to put together as part of this, right, on your own as well, and we can help you with those things. So obviously you have to have designated people or responsible persons, the person who's going to be in charge to make sure to authorize an evacuation.
You want to have somebody, and when it comes to bullet point 2, one person who's responsible, and then they can have counselors, if you will, or teammates that can be part of there. So when it says person or persons, that they can do a trail down theory, and then if the person who is responsible for everything is not there, obviously the chain of command would enact, and then number 2 guy comes, and then number 3 and goes down. But you really want to have some people labeled for that kind of a job in your company.
And and then the next thing is you need to have some sort of communication or alarm system to be able to let your folks know that
Yeah.
emergency response is needed.
That's right, Rick. You got to have something. And so you'll find that on the fire alarm is the picture we put there, but some of you might not have fire alarms in your warehouses or in your facilities. It might be just the area or the age of the building, and that's okay. You got to have some way to communicate, let's get the crap out of this building and do it fast. And so that might very well be a Big 5 air horn that you pick up, and you train them. When you hear this sound, you're going to evacuate the building. Sometimes people will say, well, we're just going to do the verbal commands. Well, you know, sometimes the ladies in the front office do seem to yell a lot anyway, so that might just be drowned out by the guys in the back. It was kind of a joke, never mind. But the logic here is the verbal end of it might not always be the best thing. And so verbally comboed with an attention getter of an air horn real quick, bam, hey, it's time to get out, people, come on, and then a couple more air horns. In an emergency, that probably would be the best kind of a case. Unless it's an earthquake, then you'll just, if the building is shaking, yeah, that might be another good reason to get out of the building. There you go.
So then you also want to have evacuation procedures in place so people know where the exits are. And Michael, talk to them a little bit about the types of things that they want as far as a map and what they need to put together, because this is a part that they actually have to put together at the client.
You really do, because the map of your building has to be done by you guys. And so the emergency action plan that we create has all the elements in the training and action and stuff in it, but you just need a site map. This is very simple to put together for you guys. You're just going to have a rough sketch of the building and the offices and hallways. That's it. I don't need a map of every little chair or how many steps are in the staircase. Just give me a basic rough address of what this map looks like, and we can talk about that a little later, and then you can put that into place. But for example, the evacuation procedures for an earthquake might be different than a fire. Do you see what I'm saying? You might say in an earthquake circumstance, these shelves are going to create this exit or this area to be highly dangerous to run through. So do not go through that area. In the event of a fire, though, you just want to get out any exit that is safe. But so you need to talk about the 3 big ones or the 4 big emergencies that you're planning for. Obviously, you plan for everything, but it's hard to do it, and then go for that.
And where should they keep this map so that the employees are aware of all of this?
That's a good question, Rick. You got to keep this map by the exits when people come in and out. Now, it doesn't have to be through every exit. Okay, maybe not. But your front door, yeah, let's put emergency action plans. When your guests walk through, like I do many of your offices, I can see it at the front doorway, maybe on the side or somewhere, that it's clean looking. I can see the exits on how to get out. And also you might put it in the back areas so that the employees back there can see it as they're walking in and out.
Fantastic. Okay, so then the next part is having shutdown procedures, which may or may not come into play. You might have equipment that might need to be possibly looked at, or gas lines or what have you. And what's the best practice to apply there, Michael, when shutting these things down?
Well, I love the shutdown procedures area, because a lot of the clients I talk to say, oh yeah, we've got shutdown procedures. We need to shut down this and that before we can get out of here. But when you look at the shutdown procedures, you remember, you're risking somebody's life to shut down what? And so when you talk about the shutdown procedures, you need to talk about with your employees what needs to be shut down and, frankly, what doesn't need. You might find that there's nothing in your facility, unless you are a nuclear station, that needs to be shut down. If you've got an incredible amount of ammonia, or you've got some sort of hazardous waste that can ruin the whole town or kill hundreds of people, or you do more damage to leave it up, and I'm not talking property damage as you guys listen, you might just not shut it down. So you really got to be cautious when you tell an employee, you've got to stay here when everybody's leaving to shut down this one item. And so talk about it amongst yourselves once again, but you're going to be hard-pressed to sell me that the majority of you are actually going to have solid shutdown procedures.
Right, so when you talk about things to shut down, it's commonly known, even in our homes, when you have earthquakes, the first thing people want to do is shut down the gas, because you may have a cracked line, and obviously if you can, that's something that you would want to do, but you want to make sure your employees are trained as Michael said, when to just go ahead and leave it, or when it's safe to go ahead and shut those things down.
So let me just play on that for a little bit. Let's say you want to shut down the gas main to the building, and it's somewhere inside. I don't know where it is, but you want to shut down gas to something, because in the event of an earthquake, it could good blow. The problem I see is you really got to make that good guess, because if you go back into the building or you stay in the building and the earthquake is over and you feel like I can go shut it off and be fine now, for two things. You don't know if it's leaking. You don't know if an aftershock is coming. For those who have done earthquakes before, they know they come. And you don't know what is unstable back there as the employee goes back to shut it down. So the question comes back to, is it really, really that necessary? Will more life result in the not shutting it down than to shutting it down? And who gets to be able to volunteer for that job? If you feel like something absolutely has to be shut down, then I think you should volunteer to shut it down in the event of an emergency and put your own life at risk.
Okay. So next, you need to have some sort of employee accounting procedure.
Yes.
So that means, as part of the map that we were talking about, in addition to having your escape routes, you also want to have a designated spot where the people are going to meet. And when they meet at that spot, somebody needs to be in charge of accounting for everybody to make certain that all of our employees are out there.
And when he says spot, I'm going to just add an S to that, spot or spots, because depending on the emergency, you might say this will be great for a fire, but this would be horrible for an earthquake. And so you've got to be able to have point A and point B, and to be able to know and have people outside that are directing traffic. We're going to plan B, we're going to point B, or we're going this direction or that direction, to make sure you know what you're doing outside.
Now, this next one is one that may or may not come into play, but procedures and training in rescue and medical duties for assigned employees. Michael, go ahead and elaborate on that and what circumstances that you might have where that could come into play.
Well, sometimes medical duties are necessary. You know, my recommendation is that you always have a person or two in a company that is, depending on your size, of course, that is first aid certified. And these people I would recommend to be volunteers. You certainly don't want somebody going to this course who doesn't really care and they're really not impressed to be there and they're just doing it for their job. You have some people out there that really want to be this person, really want to help and really want to learn it, and that's the kind of person you want going. Have somebody there that can provide some basic rescue opportunities, some basic rescue services before the medical team gets there or whatnot. Obviously, we're not talking pulling out a couple chargers to shock somebody's heart back into play, but you know, some basic first aid, some CPR and something in that area, and you can have that going on. And that's what that's talking about.
Okay, and then the next part would be, again, something that may or may not come into play for you, is procedures for assisting employees with special needs.
We have employees always with special needs, and when you think special needs, a lot of people think of some serious, handicapped people, and you don't think of that necessarily. There might be some people that just walk faster than others. There might be people that, their knees don't work well anymore, or something like that you have there. You need to be cautious of the people in the workstation. Sometimes the people in the office, they don't move as fast as sometimes the people in the warehouse. Hope you're not offended by that. But the logic is you just need to have people that with special needs. It could be somebody that's in a wheelchair, and it could be somebody who just doesn't move as fast, or they're a little older and need some help in that way.
So in general, in that circumstance, you're going to have somebody that is assigned, obviously going to be in close proximity to where that person is stationed, and have somebody that's assigned to helping that individual to evacuate.
For example, I'm a larger man. If you haven't met me, I'm about 6'2", and I'm sizable, let's just say. If I was having a hard time with my knees and there was an emergency and I fell in the hallway, it would be hard-pressed for our office manager, the famous Lori McFate, to probably pick me up. She'd probably just leave me there, and make sure I treat her good, so she wouldn't. But she'd probably just leave me there and run off on her own. So I would want somebody to be assigned to me, like a Manly Rick or a Steven in our office, or Sam in the field, or heck, Ray or Tooney in the field that might be able, if they were nearby, to help me. So you want to be able to think of that kind of stuff as you're assigning people to be a helper in certain areas.
So the next key element, and of course, is training. I mean, that's obviously having the procedures in place without training your employees and doing things so that they're familiar with all of these processes and their assignments would do you no good. So training is a very key part to this.
And the key word there is all. You got to train them all. You make sure all of them will hear what the plan is, who they're going to be checking in with, where the map is, and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And we'll get into some of that training stuff here in a second. So then obviously then the last part here is a list of emergency services and contacts. There may be key contacts at your business that need to be notified that may not be there at that time, and so you want to make sure that you have a list or some way to be able to get in touch with all of the services and people that need to be notified.
There is a lot of times that we run out of a building without anything else besides what's on us, and so if the list of emergency contacts and everything is in a file, that might be difficult. So you got to check with your decision makers over there to figure out if this is possible or not. But having somebody with a file on their smartphone or someone on their cell phone where they have a list of, and I know this can be daunting at times depending on the size of your company, but maybe a mobile device somewhere that had a list of these things in some sort of PDF file they could open up and see a list of the contacts might be a good idea. If it's not possible, don't worry about it. Just keep it somewhere that's accessible inside the building. But a lot of times when I'm walking around, I keep my cell phone in my pocket. And so when an emergency strikes, you might not grab your purse, but some of us keep our cell phones in our pockets all the time. And frankly, if I was to run out, I'd have that on me and could open it up and see here are the people that are working for us and what's going on, and there might be an extra contact in there. So a little planning ahead.
So those are the what keeps your plan effective. Now let's talk a little bit about the training. There's some general training that needs to take place, as Michael indicated, things that you need to train all of your employees on.
So some of the training that we do is, the identifying the lines of communications, exit routes, meeting places, responsible persons. Got to make sure these people know who they're going to contact, what exits they should use in certain areas, where some of the routes, depending on what the accident, the emergency is, the earthquakes or fire, like we had talked about, and then a meeting place or places on the outside, and then the responsible persons they're looking to find and check in with. They're also looking to do fire extinguisher training, at least periodically. We don't have an exact set. This is the amount of in so many months you do it, but the term in Cal OSHA is regular fire extinguisher training. Just an overview of how they work. When it comes to the individual training of the employees, you want to do the evacuation, the shutdown procedures, if there is any, and you need to train them that there is none. Just get out so that they don't feel like they got to shut down some sort of machine if it's not absolutely life-threatening not to. An employee accounting, who's going to track them, who's going to count them, and how they do that. That might be something that they need to put on their smartphone of these are the names the employees are looking for, so that they can remember that as they're going out there. Rescue and medical help, who's going to be calling the 911, who's going to be getting that. Obviously anybody with a phone can call, but a rescue, who is going to be the rescuers to go back in? Hopefully it's the 911 emergency personnel, but if there was to be somebody, who could that be? Who would want to volunteer? Or maybe you don't want anybody rescuing anybody. You got to make that choice inside and tell them in advance. Special needs of assisting people with handicaps or disabilities, or frankly they're just a little slower than others like myself, who is going to help us in case we fall over and get hurt. And then contacting emergency services. You got to make sure this contact person is going to be the one who's going to be communicating with the emergency services, so when they get there they don't have 700 people trying to talk to them, but you are going to be the point man. We're all going to report to you who's here, what's happening, so that person can know what to do and to be able to communicate that properly to the emergency personnel on site, the police officers, the firemen. And so who gets that great job? Well, that's what you guys are going to assign.
Exactly. So that individual training would be on those processes that the individual that is assigned to those individual tasks, to make sure that they're aware of all of their responsibilities and how to conduct those things as they're going throughout that process. So we're going to talk now about how often you need to update or train on your programs.
The changing of responsibilities takes place in certain times, and so when some sort of change of responsibilities, there should be an announcement of some sort, a training. You need to also do it when you change equipment. The changing of equipment at times can make sure that we need to update and retrain. The equipment can be placed differently. The equipment can be, maybe it's louder than usual and we won't be able to hear the emergency alarm to get out. But when you have a change of equipment, it's good to think about, does this affect our emergency action plan? And that's something you do. Change of workplace layout, the changing machines, the moving of machines, where we store things, and that way. That's something to watch out for.
So those are all things that you're going to be looking to update. That's part of the written procedures. So you would obviously, in a change of a workplace, you're needing to, you see this map that we have created here, you would need to possibly update that if you did an addition to your building or moved some equipment around. And those are the things that you need to update there. Then as far as the training, you want to train upon initial hire, so you make sure that the employees are aware of all of these circumstances. And an initial assignment. So initial assignment does not necessarily mean an initial hire. That you might reassign somebody to a different position in your company, and they might be relocated into a different department. Also, you want to, whenever there's a change in the program, so if you've updated, as we said up at the top here, that if you've change some of the responsibilities. You've got somebody else that's in charge of accounting for your employees. Now everyone needs to know who to report to, so you would need to make everybody aware of those things. And then periodic just refreshers, just to make sure. And what types of things we've talked about doing, even like a drill or something at some point.
Well, we do get asked that a lot, Rick. People will say to us, I feel like we need a drill. Don't we need to do a drill? At the last company I worked, we did a drill. Here's the rules about drill. OSHA has no requirement that you perform a drill at any period of time. What they talk about is training, but they don't specifically say a drill. So what you want to make sure that you're doing is that you train your people well enough where they know what to do. If you feel like a drill is needed, then great. I particularly believe that a drill once in a while is not a problem. To say, all right, this is how we're going to get out. It depends on your environment. If you're in a small 4,000 square foot office that there's only 3 exits, front, back, or left, then I'm not sure a drill is absolutely necessary. It just depends on your work environment and what you feel like. But a drill is something important, and you don't need EEAP to be there. You can do it anytime. Tell them we're doing a drill the last 15 minutes of the day, or the last 30 minutes of the day, we're doing a drill this day. Here's the drill. Everybody get up and walk out, and let's do this. And that probably is going to be, for a lot of us, the best thing to do.
Fantastic.
All right, so let me just give us a plug real quick. We can go anywhere in the state of California and give you a free on-site evaluation. So if you are not a client of EEAP, we would be glad to give you your first free on-site evaluation to help you understand what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, and so we can help you with what's going on. And yes, I can save you a lot of money and potential fines within 20 minutes. All right, there is your plug.
Okay, so we're ready for questions. If anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask, pertaining to the emergency action plan, any specifics that we can help you with, go ahead and fire off with the questions, and we will get to those. In the meantime, Michael, do you have any
I do have some
comments?
things. You know, the emergency action plan is something that a lot of people, you know, they get and they thought we must be fine, we're good to go. But you really need to generate this map. Generation of the map in your facility is key. You own the map, you've looked at it, you understand what's going on, and you're able to implement this. The map is the key focus of where is there. Having the map in your program is not necessarily mandatory, but you do need to have it posted throughout your facility. In that kind of a way, you're able to help the people coming in and out where the emergency action routes are and what you need to be doing. And so that's kind of something that's important to have up there. If you do want some recommendations on the map, or you want us to take a look at your map and tell you what we think, we would be glad to. Sometimes there's people out there that are very, very, very detailed, and they want to be able to, let's say, have every little last thing. Where are the first aid kits? Where are all the fire extinguishers? You know, I'm not bothered with that. Those are great things, and you know, those are really overachievers, and I think it's awesome to have on a map. But you need to be careful that the map itself is not so busy that just to figure out where the exits are at or what I need to be doing, I gotta look at it for 30 minutes to understand everything. You got to make sure it's simplistic, because when the emergency takes place, listen, I won't want to know where a Band-Aid is. I'll want to know how to get out of your building, and the less things on there for me to look at is going to be the best.
Okay. The first question is, does the size of your business have anything to do with needing to do evacuation drills?
No, because even the larger companies aren't mandated to do drills, and so it doesn't matter the size of it. But obviously, a larger company would probably want a drill to a certain extent because of the complexity of counting the employees out there, figuring out where they're going to meet, because you can't take 200 people and put them in the middle of the street. And so you might say, well, I think we can gather here. But in reality, once you see the gathering, you might think, oh, this was not a good idea. And so I would say the larger you are, probably the more important it is for a drill, but there is no rule or thing to hang your hat on.
Okay, well, it looks like we did not get many questions here today. That was the only question we had.
It's a pretty simple and right to the point, isn't it, Rick?
Yes, it is, and we do get a lot of people, asking about, some of the things that they have to implement on their own, such as the maps and what have you, to make sure they're staying compliant and providing that safe workplace for their employees. So we wanted to be sure to be able to get you the information that we could, so that you're aware of these things and can facilitate that at your place. We'll go ahead and shut it down then, and any closing comments before we go, Michael?
If you have any questions about your emergency action plan, you can call into the office and ask for the wonderful Cindy. She can help you with any of the questions that you've got going on when it comes to this. Your emergency action plans are found on your Client Center. I hope that you've logged on to your Client Center. If you haven't, you can call the office. Jackie will pick up, or any of the wonderful office people we have can give you your username and password. They have access to all that, so that you can open up your online Client Center and to be able to take a look at all the lessons we have, the archived webinars that we put on there, and then your inspection reports. Coming up soon, just so you know, in the next 30 days, we're going to have a new mobile website that will go on your smartphone for training purposes. You'll be able to have a signature page on your smartphone that when you sign that, it will save on your Client Login Center. So those of you with remote job locations, or those of you with remote employees, you can have them do a safety lesson, read that safety lesson, go over that on their smartphones. They'll be able to sign that, and that will automatically come in and get saved on your website. So we should be able to have that in the next few months, Rick. We're just finishing up the tail end of it, and so you might find that we do a webinar in the next month or two regarding that subject right there. So,
okay, we did get one more question that we'll go ahead and address real quick, because it is a pretty good question, asking about what if the employees work 85% of the time at job sites?
Well, when it comes to the emergency action plan in that kind of an area, the emergency action plan that we've written for you will work. Your thing is this, though: you got to create a map basically on the job sites. Every job site, every time, okay, maybe not, but they need to be able to know evacuation, how to get off that job site. So now the next question is, well, how long are you on the job site? Is it a 10-minute job site? Is it a 4-day job site? But yes, if it's a job site with any sort of length of time, you're probably going to want to generate some sort of meeting spot where we get off the job site. It would be a natural assumption to do that.
Okay then, folks, thank you very much. That's going to go ahead and wrap it up. And what was that?
Oh no, we're getting interrupted. We have another question, it looks like.
No, it's one that we just answered right now. It's the same one. Someone asked the same question again. So that looks like that's going to be it for today, folks, and we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you attending.
Stay safe.